how to price your products competitively. Now, the challenge for us, especially as new business owners, is that we don't want to charge too little, such that we don't make a profit and it's not worth our while. But at the same time, we don't want to charge too much so that we're not outpricing ourselves in the market. So how do we go about striking that balance so that we're making enough to make it worth our while, but at the same time to be at a price that is palatable for the people that we want to serve? So we're going to consider a few different areas from a marketing standpoint, from a sales standpoint, from a business planning point of view. We're going to put all of these factors together. And in fact, we've got a celebrity guest in the room, Chinmay, who actually ran a very similar workshop just not too long ago. So if you have finance-related questions, because mine is not very focused on the finance side, he's your man. So we'll probably ask him a couple of questions as we go along. The three main categories that I'm going to share with you today. The first one is what I call the law of value. And if you understand this one law, it will totally transform the way that you do business and the way that you think about money and serving people. The second is to think about your pricing from a positioning point of view. How do you want to position your product in the marketplace? And this, of course, takes into consideration the competition. What is it that they're charging? And how can you position yourself alongside them? And finally, we're going to look at goal setting in terms of figuring out how much do I need to make this worthwhile, but at the same time, how do I break that down into actual markers on goals and sales activities to make sure that I can actually achieve my goal. So before we go into the content, I'd like to ask you, what are your biggest questions or biggest issues that you're having with deciding on the price at the moment? Yes, Maria.
Well, my issue not to set it too low.
Yes.
Because the high prices deter certain clients.
Yes.
Low prices deter the other part of the market.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm more concerned about the lower part.
Yes, as in you don't want to be too low. That's. Yep.
From what I can see, whatever you charge,
yes,
there's always going to be a client
yes,
who's willing to pay and
yes,
specifically looking for what you have to offer.
Yes.
And if you set the bar too low, then they might think that you cannot offer that value
yes,
that they're looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
Particularly with professional speakers, it often happens when they
yes,
speak for free or very cheaply. And
yes,
event organizers or corporates, they think that if you charge that little amount, then it means you can truly offer something valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're raising a really interesting point there in terms of the perception that comes along with your pricing. So we have to be really, really careful. If we price ourselves too low, people may assume that your service is cheap and nasty, right? And we don't want that, do we? Preferably, we'd like to be on the other end. So I don't know where you are in your current business state, whether you're charging on the high end or the low end. But we'll go into that shortly. So let's go right into it then. If there's no other pressing questions right now. Yes, Chinmay, sorry.
It's all right. See, this is a challenge that I'm facing.
Yes.
Some of the clients that I served 2 years back,
yes,
fortunately, they were happy with the service. The seed that I had sown has
yes,
now slowly now reaping. And then they're saying, oh, Jim, I've got this client, that client that I would like to refer. Now, I'm not
yes,
charging the same fees that I was charging 2 years back.
yes.
Some of them are in front of me and they're expecting the same 1 or 2 or 3,000 that I would be charging. Like, sorry guys, it's 10,000 now. And suddenly they go, what?
Uh-oh.
This is what I thought. And of course, I have to show them value. But however,
yes,
I would like to tap into your expertise and find out
yes,
how that can be.
Okay, so what you're bringing up is really interesting. And I'm constantly studying psychological studies and psychological concepts. And I haven't included that in the slide, so I'm glad you brought this up. What's going on there is a concept in psychology called anchoring. And what happens is when they're first given a number, they're anchored to that number, and it's very, very hard to shift anywhere above or below. Well, below is probably easier, but to bring a person above that anchor point is very, very difficult, if at all possible. So you're in a very challenging situation. I don't think there's an easy fix, unfortunately, because once they know what the other party is being charged, they're anchored to that amount, and it's an uphill battle to justify the price from that point. But that said, it's not impossible. There are certainly, as you were saying, you need to help them to increase their perceived value of the service, and with enough trust building, you probably can overcome that obstacle for some of the clients, but I would suggest that it's going to be difficult for those that already have that anchoring point. All right, so thank you for bringing it up. Any others before I go on?
Can I share something from my experience? Like,
Yes, please.
If you're working with clients, if they are named clients, of course, first you need to know about their business and to check what are the services or products that they require. So normally, if you already have served the client for a long time, for a while, like maybe 2 projects, and they will really build that trust and the relationship is being built, I believe that ultimate is when you build that relationship, it's going to be long term. So yeah, the initial new clients might be difficult because right now clients can go anywhere like to find out the pricing, but I think it's also important what values in terms of explain case study, like present them. I have served this client exactly your industry, and that is what I have been provided them. It's just give them more confidence and understanding your approach. That's what I kind of work with them.
Yep. Thank you for sharing your experience. Yeah. All right, on to the law of value. Now, once again, I'd like to emphasize that this is the single most important concept. Like in everything that I teach, if you just come away with this one concept, it will transform the way that you see business and the way that you think about money. The law of value states that a sale only occurs when the value of what you are offering far exceeds the price that you are asking for. The value of what you are selling must far exceed the price that you're asking for. So this raises a bit of a question. You might be wondering, Ben, how can I possibly offer, and give so much value for a low price? I'd be run out of business, right? So I'd like to give you an illustration. So a couple of years ago, in fact, getting close to about 4 or 5 years ago, my home PC broke down. And I was faced with a difficult situation because one of my options was to buy a brand new computer for $1,000. The other option was to bring it to the repair shop and get it repaired for $100. So being the sort of thrifty sort of guy, I thought maybe I'll just get it fixed and see how we go, because a lot of the parts inside of the computer were still good, but there was just something not working. So I brought it in, asked the computer technician's opinion. He said, yes, we can fix it. It'll cost $100. I said, go for it. He fixed it, and it's been working ever since. So now my question for you is, what was the value to me for this service?
Depends on what you use the computer for.
Aha, yes, it does. So I use it for work and other things, but just looking at the numbers only, like disregarding the functionality of the computer, just looking at the numbers only, what was the value to me? Yeah, it's a $900 saving, right? So do you think I was upset with the repairman for charging me $100 and making $90 profit from me? Of course not. That would be a ridiculous idea, right? He gave me $900 of value in exchange for the mere $100 that I paid him. And this is where the law of value stands true. That whenever we serve someone, we have to make sure that they are getting far more in terms of benefits than the price that we are asking for. So just going back to this slide, we've all heard about the concept of win-win, but I'd like to suggest that the win on our side must look like this, and the win on the other side must look like this. It's lowercase for us, it's capital letters for our clients. Can you imagine how much better you are going to be positioned in a sales meeting or when you're meeting with a potential customer and you honestly believe in your heart of hearts that they are going to be the bigger winner in the transaction? That's going to give you a lot of posture. If they decide not to go ahead, well, whose loss is it really? Their loss is going to be larger than yours, and you can walk away confident that you did everything that you could to help these people. So this is the first thing that I want you to understand before looking at prices. This is the most important principle to remember. Now, just in this particular scenario, if he charged $200 for his service, would it still have been worth my while? Yeah, he probably could have charged it. I probably would have paid it, and I still would have gotten a net gain in terms of value. But if he increased it to 300 or even 500, how does the equation look then? Would you go for $500 repair for when you can buy it for brand new at $1,000?
Pretty cross match.
What's that?
You're pretty cross match. You expect another repairman to say it's
Yes. So we notice now that there's another, even though we are still getting more value than what we're paying, there's another force at work, and that is the force of competition, right? So competition is actually good for society. If you see competitors out there, the reason that they're there is to keep you honest, right? Otherwise, when a person monopolizes the market, what happens? Prices, they can just charge exorbitant amounts. Did you guys hear about the story of the, not story, this is a real news, about the American CEO of the drug company who jacked up the prices of essential AIDS medications just overnight. They were previously $13, he decided to charge $1,000 or something ridiculous like that for the same medication. This guy's been put in jail, thankfully, but that's what happens when you have a monopoly on a market. So competition is here to keep us honest, and it is a regulating factor in terms of our pricing. So we'll talk about that shortly. But let's delve into this a little bit, this idea of value a little bit more deeply. So my question for you is, when you're buying a cup of coffee, it's the Melbourne thing to do, what are you really buying? Are you really buying the drink with, yes, Connie?
The brand.
You're buying the brand, yes, in some cases.
The smile.
The smile?
The feeling.
The smile from the baristas and the people serving? Yeah, the service. The feeling? What sort of feelings?
Yeah, that's the customer service.
Yeah, the customer service. Yeah, what else?
The feeling of what the coffee does for you.
Yeah. Coffee's a drug. It's the most widespread and legal drug around. And what does it do for you once you've got that drug in your system, the caffeine?
Makes you present.
Yes, it does. It does. I didn't sleep very well last night, and as you can hear from my throat, I'm actually getting over a cold. So, yes, thank God for coffee. You know, it helps us sharpen the mind, opens the eyes, all sorts of wonderful benefits. That's why they can charge $4.50 for a drink, right? You can buy like 2 cartons of milk, for like 4 liters of milk for the same price as a cup of coffee. But that's not what we're really buying. We're not buying just a drink to sustain us, you know. We're buying something that helps us to be more productive, to lift up our mood, to get that social connections with other people. There's so many things involved with this one cup, and that's why they can charge so much for it. What about advertising? What are we really buying when we're buying advertising? Strategy, expertise, yes, that's involved as part of the process, yes.
I would say buying kind of hope.
Hope?
Hoping that
Yeah.
it's going to change
Yes,
what I'm about to do or what I'm doing, it can help me be more efficient. So
yeah.
I'm hoping that
Yep.
whatever they're saying is going to.
Well, let me rephrase the question a little bit. What are you hoping to get out of the advertising?
ROI.
Return on investment, yeah. You're looking for dollars. You're looking to make more money than you spend, right? So there's the law of value coming into play again. Now here's the trick with advertising. Do you always get ROI when you advertise? It's the unfortunate reality about advertising. A lot of advertisers will say, we're going to get you, the E word, exposure. We're going to expose your brand to millions and millions of people. Lots of eyeballs are going to see your brand. Oh, so is it going to get me a return on my investment? Oh, we can't promise that. They'll promise the exposure, sure. But, I mean, how much exposure is there out there? There's so many ads out there. We're constantly, as consumers, we're constantly bombarded by messaging all the time. TV, you come out, you step out of your house, you see advertising on your neighbor's car, you see advertising on billboards, it's everywhere. Exposure in itself is not valuable. I once spoke to one businessman who was, he's an inventor. He created a new product. You put it on the shower screens and it helps to protect your privacy. It's a great product. He got it on TV. He got it on Studio 10. So one of the presenters said, you know, this is the new product, and we're going to give one to everyone in the audience, right? Wonderful exposure. Thankfully, he didn't have to pay for that exposure, except for the giving away the prizes. So potentially, you know, millions of people watching that show, and he got one sale from it. One sale from all that exposure, right? So with marketing, what you're really buying is return on investment. If you're spending money on advertising and you're not making more sales, you're probably wasting your money. Exposure is not really worth anything, unless you're Coca-Cola, then it's a different story. For them, it's a branding exercise, you know, and they want that exposure. But for us in small businesses, exposure doesn't mean anything unless it translates into a return on investment. So be careful when you're talking to these marketing companies. Ask them, so will I get a return on investment on this? See how their face looks when you ask them that question. What about a laptop? What are you really buying when you buy a laptop? Does anyone here own a laptop? Why did you buy a laptop? What were you hoping to get out of it?
It allows me to do my job.
Yeah, it allows you to do your job, but what advantage does it have over, say, a desktop? Convenience, powerful, flexible. Yeah, portable, absolutely. So these are all the differences that it has, and all the abilities it gives us, and the value it gives us as a result of being portable. So that's what you're really buying. What about insurance? This is a tricky one, I think. What are you really buying when you buy insurance? Fear? You're giving into your fears, right? Or you're buying peace of mind, right? The opposite, we're trying to run away from the fear.
Preservation.
Preservation, yeah, preserve yourself, yeah. If in the event that something bad happens to you, you're covered. You've got something to help you to recover. And so the point of showing these to you is the underlying principle is this, that people don't ever buy products or services. They buy what it does for them. All right? So whenever you're in a presentation or whenever you're speaking to a potential new client, think, what is this going to do for them at the end of the day? And this is a spoiler for some of my other content. When you're making a presentation to someone or trying to persuade someone to buy, what you need to do is to present them with two possible futures, right? So you're essentially getting your crystal ball out. You're going to predict the future for them. There's future A and future B. In future A, this is what you're going to get if you buy with me. In future B, this is what may happen for you if you don't buy. The more convincing the more you can paint the picture vividly for your prospects, the more likely it is that they will understand what it is that they're really buying, and then they'll want to buy from you because you help them to take them through that process. So I want you to take a couple of minutes now and just write down what it is that you are really selling. All right, so we've talked a lot about perceived value. We're going to wrap up the topic of perceived value just shortly. And one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves is what factors influence the value or the price of something. I heard an interesting quote a few times actually, that one of the diamond moguls was quoted to have said that diamonds are inherently worthless. Diamonds are inherently worthless. Well, he's got a point. I mean, if you think about, let's just say you've got someone in the desert dying of thirst, and you offer him diamonds, you know, what good is it to him if he's going to die? He'd much rather, to him, the bottle of water would be much more valuable than a diamond in that situation. And I think another great example of perceived value and increasing prices is antiques. I mean, have you guys ever sat down to watch the Antiques Roadshow, you know, from the UK? Here is a lovely ring that was from the 1800s, and it's got, you know, they'll describe all the wonderful features about it and who it was made by, and I estimate that this would be worth around £20,000. And I would scratch my head and think, who would pay that much money for something like that, right? But there are a few factors that are in play that I'm not aware of. And firstly, you know, there's an emotional factor. We can't underestimate the power of emotions when it comes to purchasing decisions. When people are looking at antiques, you know, to them it elicits a kind of emotional response. Maybe they had some of their ancestors, you know, in that same family, and to them, this antique could mean reminding them of that feeling that they had with their grandparents or other family members. The other factors that come into play is the size of the problem or the goal that they're trying to achieve. So if they have a big problem that they need to solve, price becomes moot at that point. Let's just say, for example, you come home one day from work and you notice that your bathroom faucet is broken and water is gushing out. Now, are you going to go around calling for different quotes on, oh, how much for an emergency plumbing service? Oh, $500. Oh, I can get it for somewhere else for $400. Come on, you know, are you really going to be in that situation? I hope the answer is no. Otherwise, you know, being penny wise and pound foolish, as they say. When the problem is big enough, price becomes a moot point. And this is one thing that we need to be mindful of when we're serving clients. Go to the people who have the biggest problems that you can solve. Go to those people, because you're going to bring about the greatest value for these people, and as a result, they're not going to care about the price as much. The other factor that comes into play is scarcity. So let's just take the mechanics business, for example. If you were the only mechanic within a 50-kilometer radius, are people going to argue about price? Probably not, right? So depending on how common what you provide is, that will also have a major influence on what you can charge. But the takeaway principle I want you to take from this is that value is in the eye of the beholder. So traditionally, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, so is value. Value is in the eye of the beholder. The value for certain clients will be high, and for others, exactly the same service, exactly the same product, the value is going to be low. So for you as a business owner, one of your key goals is to find the people who value what you do and only focus on those. Now, if you come across someone who's going to argue about the price and they don't care about the value that much, what would your thoughts be about such a person? Yep, absolutely.
Waste 80% of your time.
Yep, exactly right. The people who don't see the value and only care about the price are usually problem clients. They're the ones who demand the most and pay the least. So it's not in your best interest, it's not in their best interests for you to do business with them. You're much better off directing them to your competitors. Question, what do businesses value? How many of you here are B2B? Yep, and then, so we'll have another slide for you for B2C. But what sort of things do businesses value? Any guesses?
Either to save time or
Yep,
to make more money.
saving time, making money, saving money. Absolutely. If you can show them that you can increase their revenue, decrease their expenses, or save their time, help them to gain more time. Time is money after all to these people. Or one that's often not realized is lowered risk, right? So this is where insurance comes in. And if your service has a lower risk profile than other competitors, do you think they're going to care so much about the price, the small price differences? The lower you can create the risk for your clients, the more they're going to be willing to pay for it. Sometimes to people, risk is more important than the price. They would much rather go with a reliable provider than someone who's charging less, even for an equivalent product. What about consumers? There's all sorts of different things that you can answer here. I've just got a few suggestions, but what do you think people value as consumers? Yeah, but less of an emphasis on it, I would imagine. I mean, it's not often that we go into a shop to buy something and expect a return on investment.
I think convenience would be one.
Thank you.
Yes, convenience. Red took it right out of my mind. Convenience, absolutely. That's why McDonald's is so successful, even though they're peddling junk.
Feeling, as we discussed.
Yeah, feelings, savings, self-esteem, feelings of safety. A lot of these are emotionally driven. In fact, I would argue that even in a business context, a lot of it is emotionally driven, but more so with consumers. If you can get a positive association with your brand, price is going to seem much less important. So now we're going to take a few minutes to write down the answers to these questions. How does your product give more value to your clients than what they're paying? And who are these people? Who are the ones who would get the most value? Who is your ideal client? I move on to the next major consideration, which is positioning. Now, when it comes to positioning, there's essentially three places that you can put yourself. Either you can position yourself as the lowest prices, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, Kogan is one of those brands that has become enormous, well known for their low prices. And Reject Shop is another one that's a major brand selling, you know, they're kind of putting themselves down by calling them the Reject Shop. You know, we're going to sell you rejected stuff. But they're wildly successful because they're known for their low prices. So, but for many of us, especially as starting entrepreneurs, this is a very difficult one territory to get into because we lack scale, right? The thing that you'll find with all of the large companies with low prices is that they have enormous amounts of scale, which means that they can sell lots of goods for very small margins, and then that results in a large profit margin for them. But for most of us, this is not the territory we want to go in. There is the mid-range pricing that you can go for, but to me, my opinion is that it's neither here nor there. And this gets a little bit troublesome in terms of the value proposition. So I would always suggest when you're starting out to err on the side of being the premium provider. You provide maximum value and you also charge a premium for it. And what do you think is going to be the problem if you're charging a low price for a premium service? Was it?
Losing the business.
You lose business? Why would you lose business?
You cannot make profit to
Yeah.
run the business.
Yeah, absolutely. But even in the mind of the person buying from you, if you're claiming that you have the best service and you're charging so little for it, there's an inconsistency, isn't there?
Yeah.
The automatic assumption is that there's something wrong with the service, and so therefore it's too good to be true, right?
Too much stress as well. Too much stress to maintain that.
Too much stress to maintain. Yeah, absolutely. So this is, if you're providing a valuable service, never ever go in the range of the lowest prices. That's just asking for trouble. It's not even in the best interest of your clients to charge low fees because they're not going to appreciate you as much, even if they do buy. So if you're a premium provider, charge premium prices, please. Please, you're doing yourself a favor and you're doing your clients a favor as well. Now, but here's the caveat. The higher the price, the stronger your value proposition needs to be. The higher your price, the stronger your value proposition needs to be. Remember those scales, that has to be a win-win, but a big win for your client. So if you're going to be charging a lot more than your competitors, you better make sure that you can have a really strong value proposition when put aside them. So what are some of the things that you need to look at in terms of your competitors? First of all, you need to find out what it is that they're charging. You may consider picking up the phone. Hi, yes, I'm interested in your service. By the way, how much do you charge? I've never done this, by the way. I've always had more covert ways of finding out prices. Sometimes they'll publish it on a website. Most people don't nowadays. So however you can find out the prices, maybe ask a friend to call on your behalf so you don't feel sheepish on the phone. But another thing that you need to consider are the strengths. Thanks, Windows.
Don't update, because there's more problems.
Oh my goodness, I don't like Windows updates. What are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? Everyone has strengths. Everyone has weaknesses. Even Goliath, the giant from the Bible story, had weaknesses. Apparently he had poor eyesight. And apparently he also had some other struggles in terms of walking properly because he was so tall, right? So thinking about small businesses versus big businesses might have scale, but they lack in the care factor a lot of the time. And that's what the small businesses are good at providing. So have a think about what their strengths and weaknesses are, and this is what will help you to position yourself against them. So I want you to answer now. So first of all, circle which territory you want to position your products. And secondly, I want you to identify what makes your product different to your competitors. So here are a few suggestions. Maybe you excel in speed. So for the mechanic example, if your work is faster than everyone else's, that's something that people will value. Price is another one, of course. Quality, risk, and sometimes the personal factor, and this will be relevant for you, Luke, in terms of the personal factor, getting to know people, showing that you care. That is something that can really hold a lot of value to some people. So write down a couple of things of what makes you different from your competitors. Okay, so most of you have finished. Separate question. If there's nothing different about what you do compared to someone else, what is that known as in economical terms or business terms? It's a word starting with C. What's that?
Competitors?
Competitor? No, if you're providing an identical product or service to someone else, what's that called? David?
Comparable.
No, not quite. It's called a commodity, right? A commodity is something that has no differentiation from one to another. If you can't answer this question, what makes you different from your competitors? You are selling a commodity. And when you are selling a commodity, what is the biggest influencing factor on who you buy from? Price, absolutely. Let me give you a quick example of selling commodities. When I first started out in the sales profession, I wasn't very good, by the way. I was selling domain names as my main product. So we could sell websites and all that other stuff, but domain names was what I was selling. If you don't know what a domain name is, it's the address for a website, just the rights to the name. Now, I worked for a company, I won't name the company. You can look it up on my LinkedIn profile and see that it's Melbourne IT. So Melbourne IT was, they monopolized the domain name market at the beginning. So they could charge whatever they wanted for the domain names. Our price for the name, for the website name, was $140 for 2 years. Our competitors were selling it for $25, right? So arguably, it's the same name, right? It's the same, exactly the same product. How on earth did I sell a product for $140 when they could have easily gone to another competitor and paid $25 or even $40 from another reputable company for exactly the same thing? This scrambled my brain. I had to think of some sort of way to justify, and just on my own personal integrity, I was thinking to myself, how can I possibly charge this amount if they're getting exactly the same thing they could get cheaper elsewhere? So then I started thinking, and I recognized that, hey, even if the company doesn't provide anything extra on top of the domain name, I can provide them my expertise. Now, how much would you pay for an expert consultant to give you advice on how to go about choosing a name, what website provider to go with, and all that sort of stuff, the guidance that goes with that? Possibly hundreds of dollars, right? So this is what I offered people. I said, yes, the price is $140. You could go to another provider for $40 or $25, but what you'll get with me is my expertise. I will spend the time with you to talk through your business and to figure out what your goals are and help you to achieve those goals. That is how I sold a commodity for $140 versus $25. So even if you're selling something that looks similar to someone else, by figuring out what your differentiation is, you can certainly charge more for it, provided they value that in the first place. Some people would laugh at me and say, yeah, I don't need that, thanks. I'm going to move my domain names over to this other $25 provider. Okay, that's your choice. See you later. Final step. We need to start deciding on what's going to make it worthwhile. We need to charge prices such that people perceive the value of what we do, but we also need to meet our personal goals. Now, one of the things that I learned from Chinmai's seminar on this topic is that we run a loss at the beginning of our businesses. So for the first couple of years, we fork out tens of thousands of dollars just to set up. Then we forfeit the opportunity cost of not being at our regular job. So we could have earned another $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 if we had just stayed in our previous job. We're making huge sacrifices in order to start our own businesses. And so the goal is to make up for that and reward ourselves for the risk that we have taken. With significant risk must come a significant reward. If we're going to risk, we must have a reward for our efforts and going through the trouble. But here's a really important principle I'd like to share with you up front. And this principle is that we will only ever achieve what we set out to in our mind. It all starts up here. I have seen many salespeople who will achieve up to the level that they have in their head, but no more and no less. When they go less, they start scrambling and think, oh, okay, what can I sell? Sell. Then they reach their comfort point. But then if they overachieve, they start sabotaging themselves. They say, I've already met my target. I'm just going to sit back and cruise for the rest of the month. You will only ever achieve what you set out to in your mind. This is a really important principle that I don't want you to ever forget. So if you set your targets low, that's all you're going to achieve. Set your targets high, within reasonable limits, and that's what you will achieve, given the right amount of effort, time, and strategy. With that said, what I'd like to do is to walk you through the tool that I've written out for you at the bottom of the page, so Sales Goals 2018. It's a very simple formula. The number of clients that you serve in a 12-month period multiplied by the average transaction value is going to equal the amount of revenue that you generate in that period. Now, this is the simple version. For the more in-depth version, what you'll need to do is to figure out how much profit you make from that revenue. Okay, so minus all of your expenses, what is the profit target that you need to meet? Don't forget that as a business owner, you're not being paid super. You're going to pay your own super. You're not being paid sick leave. Say I'm sick, I have to come to work whether I like it or not, right? You're not being paid annual leave. All of these things you need to take into account. So add on the 10% for the superannuation, add on 10% for the GST. Don't forget your personal income tax as well, right? So you got to figure out how much revenue that you need to make up for all of these expenses, and then you got to compare that to what you would get if you were earning in a regular job. But let's keep things simple just for now. The number of clients times the average value equals your total revenue. So you may want to start off. You can do this in any order you like, by the way. Just choose two of the factors that you are confident in, whether it's your target revenue, your average transaction value, or the number of clients. And this formula will help you to work out whether that's realistic or not. So I've had some people go through this exercise. They say, I want to earn $500,000. And how much are you charging for each client? $1,000. So you're going to serve 500 clients in a year. So sometimes it brings to light, the flaws in their system. So what I would recommend for someone in this situation is that, well, you got to figure out how to charge more for what you're doing. And not just by jacking up the price. I mean, you have to, of course, deliver the amount of value for that increased price as well. So instead of serving them for just 2 months, what about serving them for 12 months, for example? So to summarize, a sale only occurs when the value far exceeds the price. So once again, embed this mindset into everything that you do. And you'll find that it's going to give you a lot more purpose in your business, as well as strengthening your position in your negotiations. Positioning determines what you can charge. So charging high means that you're providing a premium service. Charging low means that you've streamlined things, you're able to scale things. And finally, we need to set ourselves realistic but achievable financial goals. It has to be worthwhile for us because we're going about here bringing so much value for people. Remember that, and this is something that I didn't mention before, but I want you to start thinking about profit as a measuring stick for your impact on society. The more money you make, the greater your impact on other people. Let that be the purpose of your business. Thanks for coming. I hope to see you again next time.
Thank you.
Okay.